The last bus on Route 7 always ran late on Tuesdays, and David had learned to bring a book. He turned the corner onto Maple Street, expecting to see the familiar copper-colored mass curled beside the shelter, but tonight something felt different. The dragon was there, had been there every evening for 3 years, but his golden eyes kept drifting toward the sky. Wraith had appeared one autumn morning shortly after Earth joined the Galactic Union. No announcement, no formal introduction. He simply walked down Maple Street, found a bus shelter at Station 12, and sat down. The neighborhood panicked at first. A creature the size of a delivery truck with scales that gleamed like old pennies and claws that could shred steel had decided to make their modest downtown his home. Police came. Animal control came. Even a nervous Galactic Union representative came, stammering apologies and promising immediate relocation. But Wraith never threatened anyone. He just sat there, watching the buses come and go. And when people approached, he rumbled softly like distant thunder. That rumble became familiar, comforting even. The first person to actually sit beside him was Mrs. Okoye from the coffee shop across the street. She brought him a cup of hot chocolate one cold November evening and placed it carefully between his massive claws. He looked at it for a long moment, then at her, and made that gentle sound again. She sat down on the bench. They waited together in silence until her bus arrived. After that, everything changed. Children started leaving drawings tucked under his claws. Teenagers used his tail as a backrest while waiting for late rides home. The elderly found that sitting near him eased their aching joints, something about the warmth his body radiated. Night shift workers discovered that the walk to Station 12 felt safer than any other route home. Crime in the 6-block radius around Maple Street dropped to 0 within 2 months. David had been taking this bus for 5 years, but he only really noticed the neighborhood after Wraith arrived. Before the dragon, everyone waited alone, faces buried in phones, avoiding eye contact. Now people talked, shared stories. A community had grown around this strange guardian who asked for nothing except to be allowed to stay. Tonight, David carried a folder of crayon drawings from his daughter. Lucy was 7 and had never known Station 12 without Wraith. She made him new pictures every week, tales of dragons and children being friends, castles made of bus shelters, adventures on the number 7 route. David tucked them under Wraith's left claw as he always did. The dragon touched them with one massive talon, so carefully it barely crinkled the paper. But he did not look at them. His gaze remained fixed on something far above the streetlights. 3 other shapes descended from the darkness. David stepped back instinctively. More dragons, smaller than Wraith, but wearing something that looked like armor carved from dark metal. They landed in the street with heavy thuds that cracked the asphalt. Traffic stopped. Car alarms wailed. The lead dragon, a female with scars crossing her snout, spoke in heavily accented English. "Wraith, we have come." Wraith finally looked away from the sky. "I know. The Empire recalls all warriors. The border conflicts have escalated. Your presence is required." David felt his stomach drop. He had known this might happen someday. Everyone who cared about Wraith had quietly feared it. The dragon was Dreekin, a species legendary across the galaxy for their prowess in battle. Warriors who never retreated, never surrendered, never showed weakness. Yet here was Wraith, who had spent 3 years sitting at a bus stop, making sure people were not alone. "How long?" Wraith asked quietly. 3 days to settle your affairs. Then we depart." The scared dragon turned to leave, then paused. "You are the finest warrior I ever served beside, old friend. Do not forget what you are." After they lifted off, silence blanketed the street. David found he could not move, could not speak. The bus arrived, its doors hissing open, but David stayed where he was. "You have to go," David said finally. Not a question, that Wraith's response came slowly. "I am a soldier of the Dreekin Empire. When called to serve, we answer. But you've been serving here." The dragon made that rumbling sound, but this time it carried sadness. "This is not what they mean by service." David sat down on the bench, right beside Wraith's massive foreleg. "Then they are idiots." For the first time in 3 years, David heard Wraith make a sound like laughter. It was a strange noise, somewhere between a growl and a sigh, but unmistakably amused. "My daughter loves you," David said. "Half the neighborhood loves you. Mrs. Okoye bakes you cookies, even though you cannot properly eat them. Do you know why? Because humans are strange and kind in ways I do not fully understand. Because you sit with us. Because you show up every single day and you make sure no one is alone in the dark. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How powerful?" Wraith touched Lucy's drawings again. A child's crayon sketch of a dragon and a little girl holding hands. "I did not know such things mattered. Not before here. Not before humans showed me. Then you know leaving will hurt people." "Yes." The word came out barely above a whisper. "But staying while others die may hurt more." David had no answer to that. How could he argue with someone torn between two forms of duty, two kinds of love? He simply sat there as the minutes ticked past, as the late bus came and went without him boarding, as other regular riders appeared and quietly joined them in vigil. Mrs. Okoye brought coffee for everyone. She said nothing, but her eyes were red. By midnight, 20 people sat around Wraith in the pools of streetlight, none of them speaking, all of them simply being present, the way he had taught them. When the last person finally left, when David reluctantly headed home to his daughter who would cry tomorrow when he explained, Wraith remained alone at Station 12. The dragon who had made sure others never waited by themselves now waited in solitude, counting down the hours until duty called him away from the only place he had ever truly chosen to be. His golden eyes returned to the sky, and this time they stayed there. Morning fog rolled thick down Maple Street when Mrs. Okoye opened her coffee shop at 5. She brewed Wraith's usual hot chocolate first, as she had every morning for 3 years, then stepped outside into the gray light. The cup nearly slipped from her hands. 4 dragons now occupied the space around Station 12. 3 stood in formal military stance, while Wraith remained in his familiar seated position. Their scales gleamed like polished weapons. His looked warm, lived in, softened by years of children climbing on his back and elderly hands steadying themselves against his side. Mrs. Okoye approached anyway. She had faced down worse than dragons in her 70 years. The visiting Dreakin watched her with unreadable reptilian eyes as she placed the hot chocolate between Wraith's claws. "Your usual, dear," she said firmly. The scarred female dragon tilted her head. "You bring beverages to a warrior of the Empire? I bring drinks to my friend." Mrs. Okoye met the dragon's gaze without flinching. "And you are?" "Commander Shun. I serve with Wraith in the 3rd Talon Division." She gestured to the others, Pole and Vorin. Pole was younger, his scales still bright and unmarked. He stared at Wraith with something between confusion and disappointment. "The stories did not mention this. They said you requested posting to Earth. They did not say you became a pet." Wraith's rumble held an edge now. "I am no one's pet." "Then what are you?" Vorin, the older veteran, spoke quietly. "Because you're not the warrior who left us." Mrs. Okoye caught fragments of their conversation in the Dreakin language, a series of clicks and low-frequency sounds that made her coffee cups rattle. She understood none of it, but she understood tone. Disappointment. Confusion. Something that might have been concern. The morning commuters began arriving. They stopped short at the sight of 4 dragons, uncertainty flickering across their faces. But Mrs. Okoye stood her ground, and slowly, one by one, they approached. Found their spots near Wraith, as they always did. The teenage boy with the skateboard. The woman in scrubs heading to the hospital. The old veteran in his wheelchair. Shun watched this with obvious bewilderment. "They do not fear you." "No," Wraith said simply. "Why are you here?" Poole demanded. "This posting makes no sense. You were decorated 17 times. You led the assault on Kraken Ridge. You saved an entire battalion at the Vale Nebula. And now you sit at a transportation station for a species that has not even mastered their own solar system. I sit with people who need someone to sit with them. They're not warriors. They are not even your species." "No," Wraith agreed. "They are not. But they taught me something our species never learned." That made all 3 visitors pause. Shun leaned closer. What could these humans possibly teach a Dreakin? Before Wraith could answer, a small voice cut through the tension. Wraith! Lucy burst through the gathering crowd, her grandmother struggling to keep up. The child carried a bundle of papers, new drawings, her face bright with excitement that died the moment she saw the other dragons. She stopped, took a step back, but Wraith made his gentle rumble, and Lucy's fear evaporated. She ran forward and thrust the papers toward him. I made you these. It's you and me going on an adventure. Wraith took them with impossible delicacy, his massive claws somehow precise enough to handle thin paper. He examined each drawing carefully. Lucy had drawn him with wings spread, her tiny crayon figure riding on his back, both of them flying over a city where no one looked lonely. The three visitors stared. A hatchling, Vorin said quietly. Not even your species. Yet she approaches without hesitation. She trusts me, Wraith replied. As do they all. Pole shook his head. This is not service. This is weakness. You have gone soft, sitting with prey species and letting their young treat you like an amusement. Something dangerous flashed in Wraith's eyes. Careful. It is truth. The Wraith I knew would never. The Wraith you knew was incomplete. The words came out hard. I fought for 30 years. Won every battle I entered. Earned every honor the Empire offers. And I never understood what I was protecting until I came here. Shin studied him carefully. Explain. Wraith gestured to the people around him. They are fragile. Short-lived. They possess no natural weapons, no armor, no ability to survive in hostile environments without technology. By every measure we use, they are weak. Yes, Pole agreed. Which is why, but they care for each other. A mother works night shifts so her children can eat. A stranger helps an elder onto the bus. A child makes drawings for someone who is not her family, not her species, simply because she noticed he might be lonely. Wraith's voice softened. They have a saying here. No one should wait alone. No one should face the dark by themselves. It is not a law, not a military code. Simply something they believe, and so they act on it. Mrs. Okoye smiled despite her worry. He had been listening all these years. The Empire teaches strength through conquest. Wraith continued. Humans teach strength through compassion. Both have merit, but I spent 3 decades learning only the first. I wanted to understand the second. Vorin made a thoughtful sound. And do you? I am beginning to. The bus pulled up, brakes squealing. Lucy hugged Wraith's leg, barely reaching his knee, then climbed aboard with her grandmother. Through the window, she pressed her hand against the glass. Wraith raised one claw in response. After the bus departed, Shun spoke. The war is real, Wraith. We have lost 2 colony worlds. The Empire needs warriors, not philosophers sitting at transit stations. I know. Then you will come. Wraith looked at Station 12, at the bench where David sat last night, at the shelter covered in children's artwork and thank you notes from the community. 3 years of presence. 3 years of showing up, day after day, for people who needed someone to be there. I need 3 days, he said finally. You have 3 days. Shin turned to leave, paused. For what is worth, old friend, I do not think you weak. Confused, perhaps. Changed, certainly, but not weak. After they departed, the morning crowd slowly dispersed, heading to work and school and appointments. David arrived just as the last person boarded their bus. He looked exhausted, like he had not slept. My daughter cried all night, he said, sitting down heavily. She knows something's wrong. I am sorry. Don't be. You gave her 3 years of feeling safe. That's more than most kids get. David pulled out his phone, showed Wraith the screen. Look at this. Social media posts, hundreds of them, all with the hashtag DragonWatch. Photos of Wraith at the bus stop. Stories from people whose lives he had touched. Someone had started an online petition asking the Draken Empire to let him stay. It already had 50,000 signatures. You matter to people, David said. Not just here. Your story spread. Wraith studied the screen, watched the numbers climb. Words on a device do not stop wars. No, but they show you're not alone either. Whatever you decide, remember that. The dragon sat in silence as Maple Street returned to its normal rhythm. But normal felt different now. Fragile. Temporary. In 3 days, he would have to choose between two worlds, two forms of duty, two definitions of strength. And Wraith had no idea which choice would actually protect the people who needed protecting most. Rain hammered Station 12 on the second day, but the crowd only grew larger. Umbrellas bloomed like strange flowers around Wraith, as people came not to ride the bus, but simply to stand near him. David had organized it through the neighborhood app, a quiet gathering to show support. Now over 100 people packed the sidewalk. Wraith had not moved from his post in 48 hours. Mrs. Okoye brought him food he barely touched. Someone erected a canopy over the bus shelter to keep the worst of the rain off, though Wraith's scales shed water like oiled leather. Still, the gesture mattered that a woman approached carrying a small child, no older than 2. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice shaking. 2 years ago, my husband was following me. Corridor said he couldn't, but he did anyway. I was terrified every time I left work. She shifted the child on her hip. Then one night, I came to this bus stop, and you were here. He followed me, but when he saw you, he turned around. Every night after that, he stayed away. Because of you, I felt safe enough to keep going to work, to keep fighting for custody, to keep living." Tears mixed with rain on her face. "You saved my life without ever knowing my name." She placed a letter at Wraith's feet and walked away before he could respond. More people came forward. A college student who had been considering dropping out because walking home late felt too dangerous. An elderly man whose wife died and who rode the buses in circles because home was too empty, but Wraith's presence made the loneliness bearable. A teenager who sat with the dragon one night planning to end everything, but something about the quiet rumbling and steady presence made him stay, made him try one more day. Story after story. Lives touched. Darkness held back, not with weapons or strength, but with simple, consistent presence. David watched Wraith's expression throughout. The dragon took in every word, his golden eyes moving from face to face, and something in them looked almost like pain. When the last person finished, David addressed the crowd. "We can't make him stay, but we can make sure Station 12 never stands empty. If he has to leave, we keep his work going. We sit with each other. We make sure no one waits alone." Hands went up across the crowd. Volunteers, people offering to maintain the shelter, to organize schedules, to be present. Mrs. Okoye pulled out a notebook and started taking names. The rain stopped around noon. In its wake, news crews arrived. Local first, then national, then a Galactic Union broadcast team. A reporter with 2 white teeth thrust a microphone toward Wraith. "The galaxy wants to know why Earth? Why a bus stop? You could have requested posting anywhere." Wraith regarded the camera with those ancient eyes. "I saw something in my last battle that I could not forget. I needed to understand it. Earth seemed the right place to look. And did you find understanding?" "I found more questions, but better ones." The reporter clearly wanted more, but a different voice interrupted. "If I may." An insectoid alien stepped forward, translation device clicking on its thorax. Multiple eyes focused on Wraith with obvious fascination. "I am Ambassador Click of the Galactic Union Cultural Studies Division. I have traveled here specifically to meet you." "I am not that interesting," Wraith said. "On the contrary, you are historically unprecedented. We have documented the service records of 17,000 Draken warriors across 4 centuries. You're the only one to request placement in what humans call social work." Click's translator converted its rapid clicks into smooth English. "Your species values martial prowess above all else. Yet you chose this. I chose nothing. I simply stayed where I was needed. But why were you needed here?" Click gestured at the bus stop. "This is not a strategic location. No military value. No resource significance. Just a place where civilians wait for transportation." "Exactly," Wraith said quietly. Click went silent, processing. Its translator clicked rapidly. "I begin to understand. The need itself was the reason. Not the location's value to the Empire, but its value to those who waited here. The Union spends much time studying alien cultures," Wraith observed. "Perhaps you understand humans better than my own people do. Humans are unusual. They formed the concept of universal empathy, the idea that suffering matters regardless of whether the sufferer is useful. Most species care for their own. Humans extended that circle wider than logic demands. Click's eyes swirled in what might have been approval. You learned this from them. I am still learning. That night, military veterans arrived. 20 men and women, some missing limbs, others bearing scars both visible and hidden. A colonel in a wheelchair rolled up to Wraith, her uniform decorated with medals that told of distant conflicts. "I'm Rodriguez," she said. "I commanded a battalion before I lost my legs. After that, they retired me with honors, and I felt useless for 2 years. Then I heard about you." She gestured at the others. "We all did. We understand what it means to leave the fight. The guilt, the questions. People who never served think warriors love battle, but most of us just want to protect something. Anything. When you can't fight anymore, you lose that purpose." Rodriguez looked at Station 12, at the community gathered around it. "But you found a different way to serve, a different way to protect. That takes courage too. Maybe more courage than charging into battle, because no one gives you medals for this. No one calls you a hero for sitting at a bus stop." She saluted. "Whatever you decide, you're still a warrior. You just figured out that protection comes in many forms." The veterans stood at attention around Wraith, silent respect passing between soldiers who understood duty even when it looked different than expected. As darkness fell, Lucy appeared with her grandmother. The little girl carried a backpack full of supplies, coloring books, crayons, a flashlight, and sandwiches wrapped in foil. "I'm staying with you tonight," Lucy announced. "So you're not alone." "Lucy, no," her grandmother started, but Wraith made his rumbling sound, gentle and sad. "You should be home, little one. Safe and warm." "You make me feel safe and warm," Lucy said stubbornly. "Now it's my turn." She plopped down beside his massive foreleg and pulled out her coloring books. "I'll just sit here, like you do. I won't even talk if you don't want." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Wraith carefully positioned himself to block the wind from her direction, creating a sheltered space warmed by his body heat. Lucy smiled and started coloring. David knelt beside his daughter. "You know he might leave tomorrow." "I know. That's why I want to be here tonight. So he knows what you taught me, Dad. No one waits alone. Not even dragons." The words hung in the air like a promise. By midnight, the crowd had dispersed to homes and beds, but Lucy remained, curled against Wraith's side, her grandmother watching over them both. The dragon who had spent 3 years making sure others never felt abandoned now received that same gift in return. Above them, stars wheeled through the sky, cold and distant. But here, at Station 12, warmth endured. One child's stubborn love, one dragon's quiet vigil, one community's promise to remember what truly mattered. In the morning, Shun would return. Wraith would have to give his answer. But tonight he was not alone, and neither was anyone else. Dawn broke over Station 12 with golden light that made Wraith's copper scales gleam. Lucy had fallen asleep against him hours ago, and he had not moved all night, keeping her sheltered and warm. Her grandmother dozed on the bench, a blanket someone had brought tucked around her shoulders. The Dreeken ship descended at precisely 7 in the morning. No dramatic entrance this time, just a quiet landing in the empty lot across the street. Shun emerged alone, giving Wraith and the waking neighborhood a moment of silence before approaching. "It is time," she said simply. Wraith looked down at Lucy, still sleeping peacefully. "I know." The sound of his voice woke her. She blinked up at him, remembered where she was, and her small face crumpled. "You're leaving." "I must, but we need you here." Wraith lowered his enormous head until it rested on the ground, bringing his golden eyes level with hers. "And others need me elsewhere. Families like yours, in places where war is happening. They are afraid. They wait alone in the dark." Lucy wiped her eyes. "Can't someone else go?" "They are going. But I should go too. It is what I was made for before I came here." "You were made for sitting with us," Lucy said fiercely. "That's what you're good at." Wraith's rumble carried sadness. "I'm good at this because you taught me. All of you. You show me what it means to be present for others. Now I can bring that somewhere it might save lives." The neighborhood had gathered during this exchange. Hundreds of people filled the street, the sidewalk, every space around Station 12. David pushed to the front, his face set in determination. "Before you go, I need you to promise me something," David said. "Promise that Station 12 won't stay empty. That will keep what you started. You do not need my promise for that. You will do it because it matters to you, because you understand now. Then promise you'll come back. When the war ends, when your duty is done, come back here." Wraith could not make that promise. Wars did not always end cleanly. Warriors did not always come home. But he could see the hope in their faces, the need for something to hold on to. "I will try," he said. "That is all I can offer." Mrs. Okoye came forward carrying something wrapped in cloth. "Then take this with you." She unwrapped it, revealing a small frame. Inside was Lucy's drawing, the one showing Wraith and her flying over a city where no one looked lonely. "To remember what you're protecting." Wraith took it with infinite care. "I could never forget." Shin watched this exchange with an expression impossible to read. Finally, she spoke. "Your people have made an impression on him. I did not think humans capable of changing a Dreekan warrior's fundamental nature." "We didn't change him," David replied. "We just gave him space to become what he always wanted to be." "And what is that?" "Someone who protects by being there, not by fighting." Shin considered this. In war, presence alone does not save lives. "No," Wraith agreed, standing at last. Lucy stumbled back, and he steadied her with one gentle claw. "But it changes how battles are fought, how soldiers see the enemy, how peace becomes possible." He turned to address the gathered crowd. "Station 12 taught me something the Dreekan Empire never could. That strength is not only in claws and teeth. It is in showing up every day, in bearing witness to others' pain, in refusing to let anyone face darkness alone." His voice carried across the silent street. "I'm going to war now, but I'm not going as the warrior I was before Earth. I am going as someone who understands that enemies are also people who wait in fear, that every battle has civilians hiding in the shadows, that presence can be a weapon against the violence that creates wars in the first place." Lucy grabbed his leg in a sudden, fierce hug. "Don't forget us. Never. You're written in here." He touched his chest where a heart beat slower than human rhythm, but just as truly. "Every child who climbed on my back, every elder who steadied themselves against my side, every frightened soul who found comfort in knowing someone was there. You are all carried with me." He pulled the collection of drawings from under his claw, hundreds of them accumulated over 3 years. He gave them to Mrs. Okoye. "Keep these safe. They remind me why I stayed, why it mattered." Then, one by one, Wraith approached the regular writers. The woman who fled abuse, the teenager who had contemplated ending it all, the veteran who rode circles to avoid an empty home. To each he offered a moment of presence, a final shared silence that said more than words. When he reached David, the two simply looked at each other. "Take care of them," Wraith said. "Take care of yourself. I am Dreekan. We do not break easily. You're also someone who learned to care. That makes you vulnerable in different ways." Wraith's rumble held dark amusement. "Yes, humans taught me that too." The goodbyes took an hour. The bus came and went 3 times, but no one boarded. Finally, Wraith walked toward the waiting ship, his massive form casting long shadows across Maple Street. At the boarding ramp, he turned back one final time. The entire neighborhood had raised their hands in farewell. Old and young, every person who had ever waited at Station 12, united in silent tribute to the dragon who sat with them. Wraith raised one claw in response, then disappeared into the ship. As the vessel lifted into the morning sky, Lucy started singing. A simple children's song about friendship, about never being alone, about standing together. Others joined in. The melody rose from hundreds of voices, following the ship as it climbed higher and higher, until it became just another point of light among the stars. When it vanished, David sat down on the bench. His spot now. Someone had to keep the tradition alive. "Who's waiting for the 9:30? He called out. 3 people raised their hands. "Then let's wait together," David said. And they did. Because Wraith had taught them that this simple act, sitting with others who needed someone present, was its own form of courage. Its own kind of strength. Station 12 would not stand empty. The dragon's watch would continue, carried on by the humans he had protected and who now understood what protection truly meant. Above them, the morning sky held no trace of a ship. But the lesson remained, grounded in this place, in these people, in the promise that no one would wait alone. Not anymore. Not ever again. Wraith stood in the cargo bay of the warship, surrounded by warriors preparing for combat. The sounds were familiar from decades of service. Weapons being checked, armor adjusted, low conversations about strategy and survival. But everything felt different now. He felt different. The mining colony of refuge appeared on the view screens, a bleak installation carved into an asteroid. Intelligence reports showed enemy forces entrenched in the tunnel systems. Civilian refugees trapped in the deeper sections. Standard assault protocol called for overwhelming force, acceptable civilian casualties in pursuit of strategic objectives. Shun stood beside him, studying the tactical display. Command wants this quick. We breach here, here, and here. Cut off their reinforcements. Eliminate resistance. And the civilians? Wraith asked. Collateral. Regrettable, but unavoidable. Something cold settled in Wraith's chest. 3 months ago, before Earth, he would have accepted this. Orders were orders. Victory required sacrifice. But now he kept seeing Lucy's face, kept hearing Mrs. Okoye's voice, kept remembering that every enemy soldier was someone's child, someone's friend, someone who might just be waiting in the dark hoping for morning. There is another way, he said, Pole scoffed from across the bay. Do not tell me Earth made you soft. These are enemy combatants holding strategic resources. They are also afraid, just like the people at Station 12 were afraid. Just like everyone is afraid when violence comes close. Your point, Shun demanded. Give me 1 hour before the assault. Let me try something. Try what? Wraith looked at the image of the colony tunnels, at the heat signatures showing huddled masses in the deepest sections. Families, children, people waiting to die. Let me sit with them, he said. The briefing room erupted in argument. Commanders called it insane. Pole called it cowardice. Even Vorin, usually understanding, expressed out. But Shin studied Wraith with those scarred, calculating eyes. Explain your strategy. It is not strategy. It is presence. I approach unarmed. I sit at the tunnel entrance. I wait. And then, they see me. They understand I'm not attacking. Eventually, someone will come out to investigate. Then we talk. Talk. Pole repeated with disgust. While our forces are positioned for assault, you want to have a conversation. I want them to know they're not alone, that someone sees them, that there might be an option besides fighting to the last breath. Shin was quiet for a long moment. This is the human influence. This thing you learned at their transportation station. Yes, it could fail. They might kill you. They might use the hour to strengthen defenses. They might, or they might see a chance to save their families. Shun made her decision. 1 hour. If it fails, we proceed with standard assault. But Wraith, if you die doing this, I will personally tell your human friends that their lessons got you killed. If I die, tell them I try to give others what they gave me. Hope. The dropship descended toward refuge in stealth mode. Wraith disembarked alone, walking slowly toward the main tunnel entrance where enemy forces were dug in. He could see weapons tracking him, could feel the tension of soldiers ready to fire. He sat down. Right there at the entrance, massive and impossible to miss. Made himself as non-threatening as a creature his size could manage. And he waited 10 minutes past. 20. His forces would be getting anxious, commanders questioning the plan. But Wraith had learned patience at Station 12. Sitting was not passive. It was active presence, active witness to feared 30 minutes. A figure emerged from the tunnel. Enemy species, humanoid, but scaled differently than Dreeken. The soldier pointed a weapon with shaking hands. What are you doing? The soldier demanded in broken galactic common. Waiting with you. That makes no sense. You are Dreeken. You attack. You conquer. I am Dreeken. But I'm also someone who learned that no one should wait alone in the dark. You have families down there. They are afraid. The weapon lowered slightly. You know about the civilians? I know that in every war, there are people who did not choose this, but suffer anyway. I know what it feels like to wait for violence, hoping desperately for another option. More soldiers appeared behind the first. Scared, exhausted. These were not hardened warriors. These were people pushed to the edge, protecting what little they had left. Your forces surround us, another said. We cannot win. No, Wraith agreed. You cannot. But you can save the people who matter most to you. He explained the offer simply. Evacuate the civilians under protection. Surrender weapons. Avoid the bloodshed that would come when his forces attacked. No glory in it. No victory. Just survival. They argued among themselves. Some wanted to fight anyway. Others saw the reality. Children in those tunnels. Elders. The weak and afraid who always suffered most in war. Finally, the first soldier spoke again. Why should we trust you? Ray thought of Lucy's drawing, tucked safely in his quarters. Because I spent 3 years sitting at a bus stop making sure humans did not wait alone. Because I learned that enemies are just people who have not yet found a way past their fear. Because someone taught me that presence matters more than victory. That is not a Draken answer. No, it is a human answer. But I'm trying to be both. The evacuation took 40 minutes. Civilians emerged, blinking in the harsh light, scarcely believing they would live. Wraith sat at the tunnel entrance throughout, a massive presence that somehow felt protective rather than threatening. Children stared at him with wide eyes. Parents clutched their young ones close, but did not run. One small child broke free and approached him, much like Lucy used to. The child placed a small stone at his feet, the only gift they had to offer. Wraith rumbled gently, and the child smiled before being pulled back to safety. When the last civilian had been evacuated, when the soldiers had laid down weapons, Shun approached with their forces. She looked at the peaceful scene, at lives saved, at a strategic objective secured without casualties. You did it, she said, almost accusatory. You sat with the enemy, and they surrendered. I sat with people who were afraid. They chose survival once someone showed them it was possible. News of refuge spread through both fleets. Other commanders began trying similar approaches. Not always successful, but successful enough. Conflicts that might have cost thousands of lives ended in negotiations. Soldiers on both sides began to question why they were fighting. 3 months into his deployment, Wraith received a data package from Earth. Videos from Station 12. David organizing shifts. Mrs. Okoye distributing coffee. Lucy teaching younger children to draw pictures for the new people who sat at the bus stop, continuing Wraith's tradition. The dragon taught us that showing up matters, David said into the camera. So we're showing up. For each other. Every day. Wraith watched the videos in his quarters, his rumble carrying across the empty space. They had understood. They had learned. And they were teaching others that a request came through official channels. The Galactic Union wanted to meet with him. Questions about his methods. Questions about how one dragon had begun changing how wars were fought. But first came a different message. A summons to appear before the Draken Military Tribunal. Charges of repeated insubordination. Violation of combat protocols. Conduct unbecoming of a warrior. Shun delivered the news personally. They want to court-martial you. I know. You might lose everything. Your rank. Your honors. Your place in the Empire. Wraith looked at the screen, still showing Station 12, showing the community he had helped build, showing the lessons spreading outward in ripples he never intended but could not regret. I already have everything that matters, he said. They taught me that too. The tribunal chamber hung in space itself, a neutral station where representatives from across the Galactic Union could observe. Wraith stood in the center under harsh lights, facing a panel of Draken commanders who represented centuries of military tradition. The charges were read. Specific incidents where Wraith had prioritized enemy lives over tactical advantage. Moments where he had delayed operations to evacuate civilians. The prosecution argued he had been compromised by prolonged exposure to humans, that he represented a dangerous deviation from Draken values. You are a warrior of the Empire, the lead prosecutor stated. Yet you behave like a social worker. You have forgotten what strength means. Before Wraith could respond, Shun stood. Permission to testify. The tribunal looked surprised, but allowed it. Shun approached the center, her scarred form commanding attention. I served with Wraith for 15 years before his Earth posting. I have seen him fight. I have seen him lead. No one questions his capabilities as a warrior. She paused. But at Refuge, I saw something different. I saw enemy soldiers surrender because he made them feel safe enough to choose life over death. That saved Rican lives. It saved civilian lives. It achieved our objective without casualties. She turned to address the entire chamber. He did not abandon our values. He expanded them. We teach that strength protects. He simply learned new ways to protect. The tribunal muttered among themselves. Then a door opened, and David entered with Mrs. Okoye, Lucy, and 20 others from Station 12. They had traveled across space to be here. We were not invited, David said, but we came anyway. If you're judging him, you need to hear from the people he served. The tribunal could have expelled them. Instead, curiosity won. Speak. Lucy went first, small and determined in her best dress. Wraith sat with me every Thursday for 3 years. He made me feel safe. He made everyone feel safe. If that's not what warriors do, then your warriors are doing it wrong. Mrs. Okoye followed. I have lived through wars. I have seen soldiers. Most protect through force. Wraith protected through presence. Both matter. Both save lives. You should be proud of him, not punishing him. One by one, the others testified. The woman who escaped abuse. The teenager who survived dark thoughts. The veteran who found purpose again. Each story built on the last, painting a picture of service that looked nothing like traditional warfare, but achieved something no battle could. Then David spoke. You're judging him by old standards. Standards that say strength is only in fighting, that protection is only in violence. But humans learned something you have not. The strongest protection is making people feel safe enough to choose peace. An unexpected voice cut through the murmurs. A member of the enemy confederation stepped forward. We also wish to testify. The tribunal hesitated, but allowed it. The alien diplomat bowed to Wraith. After Refuge, grassroots movements began on our worlds. Soldiers questioned the war. Civilians demanded negotiations. Your action, Wraith of the Draken, did what years of fighting could not. You made us see each other as people, not targets. The diplomat presented data. 3 planets had initiated ceasefire talks. Combat deaths had dropped by 40% in sectors where Wraith's approach was attempted. Peace movements had gained strength on both sides. You call him a failed warrior, the diplomat said. We call him the reason our children might live to see peace. The tribunal went silent. Finally, an elder commander spoke, his scales dulled with age and countless battles. I'm 70 years old. I have fought in every major conflict of my lifetime. I'm tired. He looked at Wraith with something that might have been respect. Tired of wars that never end. Tired of victories that solve nothing. Tired of strength that only destroys. He paused. This dragon has shown us something we forgot. That true warriors protect. And sometimes protection looks like sitting with the afraid until they feel brave enough to choose life. He turned to the other tribunal members. I vote to acquit. More than that, I vote to honor him. His service may not look like ours, but it achieved what we could not. The vote went 4-3 in favor of acquittal. Barely, but enough. Then came the surprise. A Galactic Union representative approached. We wish to establish a new division. Presence Peacekeepers. Individuals trained in what Wraith has pioneered. Would you lead this program? Wraith considered it. A chance to teach others, to spread what he had learned, to change how conflicts were resolved across the galaxy. Important work. Vital work. No, he said quietly. Shock rippled through the chamber. I am honored, but I'm needed elsewhere. I have a bus stop to return to. Lucy's face lit up like a star going nova. David blinked back tears. Mrs. Okoye smiled as if she had known all along. The tribunal looked baffled. You would choose a transit station over leading a galactic initiative. I would choose the place that taught me what I needed to learn. The place where my presence matters most. Not because it is strategic or important to empires, but because people there need someone to sit with them. That is enough. 6 weeks later, Wraith's ship descended toward Earth. Word had spread. When he arrived at Station 12, Thousands had gathered. Signs and banners. Children waving drawings. Adults simply waiting to welcome him home. His spot remained empty, kept sacred by the community that had maintained the dragon's watch in his absence. But the bus shelter had changed. A permanent structure now, heated and lit, with benches and a plaque that read, "Where no one waits alone." David stood beside the empty space, grinning. "Welcome back." Lucy tackled his leg before he could respond. "You came home. You promised you'd try, and you did." Wraith settled into his familiar position, and the sensation was like sliding into warm water after a cold journey. Right? This felt right. Station 12 kept going, Mrs. Okoye said, handing him hot chocolate. "We had volunteers every day. Some days, 100 people would show up just to sit together. You started something that doesn't need you anymore, but we're glad you're back anyway." Over the following weeks, life returned to routine. Buses came and went. People waited, but never alone. Children climbed on Wraith's back. Elders steadied themselves against his side. The neighborhood felt complete again. Other Dreeken began requesting Earth postings. They wanted to learn what Wraith had learned. Slowly, more dragons appeared at stations across the city, sitting quietly, being present. The Galactic Union sent observers. Other species expressed interest. What had started at one bus stop began spreading across worlds. But for Wraith, the galaxy's attention mattered less than the simple moments. Lucy's new drawings, David's nightly conversations, Mrs. Okoye's steady presence, the mother who felt safe walking home, the teenager who kept choosing to stay alive, the veteran who found purpose in sitting with others who needed company. One cold evening, a young woman approached, scared and shaking. She sat down beside Wraith without speaking, tears streaming down her face. He made no demands, asked no questions, simply rumbled gently and waited. Eventually, she spoke. "I don't know where else to go. You came to the right place. I just need someone to sit with me, just for a little while. Then I will sit with you, for as long as you need." The bus came and went. Another arrived. The woman slowly stopped shaking. When she finally boarded the late-night route, she turned back. "Thank you." Wraith watched her go, watched the bus disappear into the city night. Somewhere above, stars wheeled in their ancient patterns. Wars happened. Empires rose and fell. The galaxy turned with all its complexity and conflict. But here, at Station 12, something simpler endured. A dragon sat at a bus stop, making sure no one waited alone. Not tonight. Not ever. And in that simple act, in that consistent presence, in that quiet refusal to let anyone face darkness without company, lay a strength that needed no weapons, won no battles, earned no medals. But it changed everything anyway. Just by being there, just by caring enough to stay, just by understanding what humans had known all along, that no one should wait alone, that presence is its own form of courage, that sometimes the greatest protection is simply showing up and refusing to leave. The dragon sat by the bus stop, and the world was better for it.